The court has taken away the constitutional right of women. It is a dark day in our nation's history, stripping away this basic right. It impacts the most vulnerable women across the country. The Supreme Court ruling jeopardized the health and the lives of millions of girls and women across the nation. It is a devastating setback. I personally believe every woman should have a choice about how and when to become a mother. Reproductive rights are human rights. Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of the International Grapevine. This is your host, Wallingford Lee. Tonight on the International Grapevine, we want to tackle the dismantling of Roe by the Supreme Court. We want to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about how devastating this is going to be for most women, especially in cases of incest, rape, and stuff like that, where, their hands are going to be tied. What does this mean for women? What right did the Supreme Court have to make a decision like this? And what brought them to this decision? Anyway, in the program tonight, we're going to have the opportunity to work with a friend of mine who happens to be an attorney, Julio States, who happens to be a very good attorney and a professor at NYU and also at Columbia University. Jaime, welcome to our program. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, I'm sure you're familiar with what's going on. How devastating this move by the Supreme Court has been to women in general.
Well, that's a question that women will answer better than me, but there is no doubt that this is one of the worst decisions uh, that the Supreme Court of the United States has made uh, since the 19th century. uh, and there have been a good numbers of ridiculous decisions like Plessy versus Ferguson that basically created segregation in the United States, and it was a decision based on Jim Crow ideology. And now we have Roe versus Wade that basically uh, takes, after more than 50 years of what is considered in law stare decisis, which is respect for uh, a line of cases that basically coincide uh, with the original decision. Those type of cases like Roe versus Wade and Casey that came after Roe versus Wade basically created what is called the stare decisis in law, which is basically respect precedents, and the court basically went some against something that is has been very well respected. Uh, this is a right that is going to affect. I'm a father with two daughters and a wife, like many other families like mine, and their future now is in danger. Now there is legislation at the state level in which, uh, and according to the Supreme Court, that if they have an abortion, they can be uh, brought to to justice, and if they move from their state law now that if they move from one state to another, they can be prosecuted. This is an attack on women, and it's an attack. against the traditions of the Supreme Court. Uh, this is one of the most horrible decisions that the Supreme Court, or the most horrible decision at this point, uh, uh, has created to today.
Would you say that the momentum of the 6-3 ruling by the court was expected? Because there was a leak in early May about these same things, and they basically denied it was just a draft, and they was going to try to find out who leaked it, and now the bombshell came. Is this kind of expected?
Uh, it was expected without the leak. You know, the leak didn't tell us anything new for those who have been following the Supreme Court. As a matter of fact, uh, when I talk to my students, uh, I have been teaching for 15 years. For 15 years, I have been saying that there was an agenda by the right wing political community in this country and institutions like the Heritage Foundation and American Enterprise Institute uh, to get rid of ROE. So to me, this is not new. This was coming. One of the things that you have to give them credit to those who were pursuing this type of decision from the Supreme Court is that they were very patient. But to me and many others uh, in in academia and law, uh, it's not a surprise. It's just that it was maturing slowly until this point when Trump had the opportunity to appoint three Supreme Court justices that he knew and they lied during the confirmation process about how they were going to address the issue of Roe. This was a whole lie from the beginning of the nominations of the last three justices until now and before that.
It's amazing that you mentioned that. A lot of folks in the Big Apple in New York, all over, feel that this is a semi-political situation that goes back to the previous administration with the judges that they brought on board. What is your feeling about certain thing like that?
Uh, well, again, this is very expected, uh, and this is just the beginning of more decisions in which the rights of individuals, um, issues like voting rights, which they already, the Supreme Court had diminished the power of the Voting Rights Act in the case Shelby versus Holder, uh, Citizens United. Uh, Voting has been diminished greatly, and now I think that they are going to they're going to take a new case in which voting it will allow the assemblies, the legislatures, state legislatures, without any type of restriction or authority from the state supreme courts to decide whether uh, those changes in voting are state constitutional or not. Whether the state can say, according to the state constitution, you cannot do this. The Supreme Court is in that line of thought again, in which the people who organized January 6th will have a win because now the state legislatures will be in control of creating new districts in which uh, the party in control of that state will decide the elections and decide whether uh, people uh, can can vote. I mean, people will be able to vote, but whether the districts that are created can be partisan, meaning that if the state legislature is Republican, that they can create more Republican districts and based on partisanship. I mean, this is just the beginning of the end of democracy in the United States, which was never that strong to begin with.
So you're basically not things in the chain. You're not surprised of the move, and you tend to seem to believe that there might have been some small political things behind all these changes and the action by the Supreme Court. You seem to be not surprised, and that you feel the previous administration had some influence in these things.
No, mm, there are a lot of people who are not surprised, as bad as it is. They have been creating a record. The right in the United States, the conservative movement, they have a record of basically and openly that they want to change the way you interpret the Constitution of the United States. And like I said before, the Constitution of the United States is not a democratic uh, document. Uh, is is, for example, electoral colleges are the most anti-democratic uh, concept that exists. And if anything, there was more democracy at the state level under the state constitutions than at the federal level based on the U.S. Constitution, because electoral colleges cannot be considered in any way, shape, or form democratic concept. You know, if that was the case, Hillary Clinton would have been the president during the last 8 years because she won by more than 5 million votes over Trump. You know, and there has been a lot of other elections in which the loser had more national votes than the winner. Uh, I mean, we can start there and we can have a long conversation about this. But what I'm saying is that whatever democracy existed more at the state level, and now in the next decision that the Supreme Court is going to be accepting and addressing, uh, the we're going to be entering into uh, a new phase of decadence in this
Well,
country of
if we really go back to 1973, when this was done, the Republicans were against it, but it got approved. They were against the proposal in the Nixon time, but the Supreme Court came through. So my two-part question is, how was that able to be done? And number two, where does women go from here now with this new ruling?
well, during Nixon is interesting because that's a different era, even in which if you had uh, Republicans in the Supreme Court and Democrats, there was a respect for the rule of law. And what I mentioned before, what is called stare decisive. There was a respect for that. Um, Now, the the country was changing in the 1970s very drastically, and even the Republicans that were appointed by Nixon they went along with the times. The times required that that took place. The decision was based on it was substantive due process, meaning that the court, not too complicated, they decided that you know they want to create a new concept in which came from Griswold, a case from the 1950s in Connecticut, in which it provided allowed for couples to use contraceptives because they were using it at home, and there was a penumbra of privacy according to the decision in which the government couldn't interfere. Well, they used that concept of privacy and they used it in Roe, and the Republicans went along based on that decision of Griswold versus Connecticut. I don't want to complicate things, but just to give you the background. Now, there is no respect whatsoever to previous decisions. And where are we going? Uh, this has nothing to do with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is what it is. The fight now comes to the streets. Now come to winning elections, campaigning. There is a proposal, and Biden created a commission to consider whether uh, he can increase. By the way, uh, the Congress can increase the number of Supreme Court justices today if they want to. They can increase it three more, five more, 100 more, 20 more. The power, according to the Constitution of the United States, belongs to Congress in order to increase the numbers of the judges. They never wrote in the Constitution that five or six were the exact. That is completely open. So Biden created that commission and basically to see what they recommend. Uh, but that
Has
will
has
create
the
a
commission
situation.
reported back to Biden on these things?
Uh, I may be a little bit outdated, but I haven't heard anything. I don't think that there is a final decision. I think that there is a leaning towards increasing. Uh, the problem at this point, there is no other option in order to save the Supreme Court, but at the same time, increasing the numbers will also destroy the Supreme Court. Because every time there is a Republican, they will increase it. A Republican administration, they will increase the number. And then if there is a demo, they are going to continue increasing and increasing and increasing the numbers. And there is no stop. And that will diminish the power of the court.
As we've been talking about this, is this law by the Supreme Court applied to all states, or there are certain states that will do abortion in some form if there's incest or rape, or is that nationwide?
It's a federal uh, decision, but the states still can legislate. That what it means is that what if a state want to criminalize abortion, they can, but
Interesting. What
it is not that applies to everyone. For example, New York uh, is a safe haven for women seeking abortion. They can come to here to New York and they can have an abortion, and the decision won't affect that. What happened is that there are going to be like 20 to 25 states, maybe half of the country, who are going to make it illegal, and that's millions and millions of women who are going to be affected.
That's going to be very interesting. We'll be right back on International Grapevine as we continue talking about this ruling by the Supreme Court turning down Roe. We'll be right back in a couple of seconds. And we're back here in International Grapevine with our special guest, Jaime Estades, talking about the overturn of Roe by the Supreme Court, the impact that it has, and some of the political issues associated with it based in the newspapers and the media feeling about it. It's devastating. It takes away women's rights to their body. We always believe that a woman have a right to control her body, not the court system or anything, politics. But there's so much things going on. We want to talk in this second part of the program. What picture did Dobbs and Jackson women help played in the mind of the Supreme Court to overturn this? Jaime, as I mentioned to you, what picture did uh, Dobbs versus Jackson women help uh, played in this part of it? Because I understand that some of the ideas from there that the Supreme Court took to make their changes.
Uh, can you repeat it again? I barely hear you. Sorry.
Yes, I think that Dobbs versus Jackson women helped played a picture in the mind of the Supreme Court in order to overturn Roe.
What, I think that this was predetermined.
Hmm.
I think that this justice, yes, they didn't need any excuse or precedent to do what they did. This is a politicized Supreme Court, and I think that they did what they ideologically believe, which is that comes from a very conservative orientation, and they went back to the 19th century. I mean, in the decision, they went back to cite texts from the 14th century. I mean, this is how messed up this is. 14th century that has nothing. For example, the Constitution was created in 1787 and then was ratified by the first Congress. That was 1787. They went 4 centuries
Back.
before the Constitution in order to justify that abortion should be illegal. The concept of retrograde, they cannot illuminate that concept better than the Supreme Court. This is the most retrograde, literally, body of thinking in the world. Retrograde means going backwards. They went to the 14th centuries in order to find legal reasoning to justify a decision in the 21st century. That's how ridiculous this decision is.
Amazing, amazing indeed. What impact will this decision have in the coming elections in November? Would it going to be devastating for the Democrats? Is it going to be devastating for certain states?
No, I think that they shoot themselves in the foot. The right of women to decide, the right of privacy, the right of being a woman. Not to mention that this decision, the majority were men, 100%, except one. It's pissing off, if I may, a lot of Republican women too,
Wow.
who have had abortions. who believe in that right, and those women, they're not happy. Republicans, not all, but there is a good number, and that may translate into a change of mind in terms of how they're going to be voting in November. There are other decisions and there are other issues that men, Republican men, have been pushing that are completely anti-women, and I think that especially women in the suburbs who have been enjoying all these rights will react to those things. I'm not saying all, but I think that there is going to be a good number who hate the this last decision, and they know that the Republican Party is behind all this.
It is my understanding, obviously, that this is going to be very devastating to women. It takes away some of their rights. And it's also very a dangerous decision made by the court after all these years, 49, 50 years ago. What states would allow abortion now? And can women travel from one state to the other if they have issues with the pregnancy and they want to get rid of the pregnancy? Can they go to certain state to get that done?
Yeah, and they are going regardless of what the state laws say. For example, in Texas, it's criminalized now that women cannot go to another state to have an abortion. I mean, that goes against a fundamental right, a constitutional fundamental right of the right to travel. So there is a contradiction there that you can say that people cannot travel depending on the reasons that they have to travel, and they can be criminalized in the state of Texas. If the state of Texas finds out that a woman who was pregnant left the state for a week or two to come to New York to have an abortion, I mean, uh, first, that's
Even if it's an
ridiculous.
incest case,
Sorry?
even if it's rape or incest.
Oh, no, that's part of the decision. Yeah, yeah,
Wow, wow.
yeah.
Where does the elected officials stand with these things? Are they going from state to state explaining rights to women and what state will do the abortion and what state won't? And otherwise than that, what can they do to turn this back? Are there any possibilities?
Well, the only way that this can be turned back is by changing the numbers uh, in the Supreme Court, which I explained before. And I mean, that's something that can be done immediately. Uh, that's up to Congress to increase the numbers. And besides that, you may have to wait because the majority of the Supreme Court are basically young conservatives. We're going to be there at least 20 more years. And unless you increase the numbers, this is going to be, unless they die, and then there is a Democratic president who can replace them. Uh, but to changing the numbers of the Supreme Court at this point is not the only option is to increase the numbers from 9 to 10, 12, 13 is up to Congress. The
How can that
constitutions
be
allow
done?
Congress to do
Increase it.
that.
How can that be done? Only Congress can do that?
Only according to the Constitution, Congress uh, 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 can do that. The, the, the in conjunction with the president, who would have to make the nomination. But the Constitution is mute in terms of how many members of the Supreme Court uh, should be. You know, they never said we're going to have a Supreme Court with 5 members, 2 members, 3 members, 5 members. That was open. So today, the Congress of the United States decide to increase the number. They can increase the number to 100 if they want to 50 if they want to. The only thing, and this is like a joke, is that the Republicans may go against that legislation and go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court will say no,
Wow.
because that, you know, the law of the land in the United States, and this is a joke from law school. It's a stupid joke, but the law of the land in the United States is 5 votes. That's the law of the land.
This entire thing is staggering when you see all the killing that's happening in the school system and stuff like that, and the court doesn't step in to ban arms, but they step in to ban abortion, to control a woman's body, to control a woman's right. All these type of things are staggering. So much changes on things that has to be addressed, and they just left on the wayside. How do you feel about things like that?
Oh, let me tell you, I'm gonna be, I'm always open with you, and with everybody. So this fascism is right there outside my window around the corner. Fascism in the United States is right there. The question is, are we up to the times? Those who believe in real democracy, are we up to the times to fight that? And is Congress up to the times? We are entering into an era of fascism in the United States that began with Trump. It was growing very slowly. Trump was the result of that, of the anti democratic concept in the Constitution, like the electoral colleges. Everything is there, paved for fascism to control this country. And they know that they cannot win the majority of the vote. They have the electoral colleges. But just to make sure that everything works according to plan, they have to change the rules of the game, in which the majority of the vote, also at the state level, doesn't count. Like I said before, they started with Shelby County versus Boulder, a decision that diminished the Voting Rights Act. They are going to diminish the Voting Rights Act even more. Citizens United, corporations are people. Corporations are people. I think that we discussed this in one of your shows a long time ago. You know, all these decisions, what they have done is to diminish whatever democracy was in this country. And people better wake up. The question is this: are we up to the times to fight this?
Very good question. Jaime, because of time, we'll have to leave it right there. But I want to take this opportunity to tell you that you must come back because we have some political things in that we need to talk about so the public can hear it. I don't have words to thank you for being my special guest, for touching on all
I,
these sensitive important issues.
I'm always at your service. Always.
Thanks again.
And thank you for the
Again, this is
invitation.
Wallen Lee saying that we think this was a very good program. We like our guest, his response to things, and we'll go back and have a part two with him talking about some political issues. And again, we hope to see you next week at the same time watching the International Grapevine, who is a program that take it to where it's at, and we discuss any and all problems. Again, this is a great nation. We just hope things get better down the road. This is Wallen Lee saying good night for the Grapevine, and thanking you again, Jaime.